Hey everybody, we're back. There was an internet hiccup. All good.
All good.
We're just going to give you a few moments to connect back in. Okay, I see a comment. Awesome.
So you never lost it. Even though we were disconnected on the internet, we were always connected in the mind of spirit, the mind
Beautiful.
of source.
All right, I see folks are popping back in. So we're just gonna continue on and keep talking. So that part about money, 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 right? A sad derogation of a beautiful process, right? It's interesting. And I was thinking about it last week. As we were talking about the truth about money, and you mentioned the OJs, right? The song by the OJs, right? Money, money, money. But it's talking about for the love of money, right? What happens when you do that? And of course, we went through that, right? The love of money is the root of all evil. So, in and of itself, speaking about money is not bad. But if and when it is rooted in this consciousness of get, we have to be aware of that. We have to be aware of that, and particularly in this context in our spiritual circles. So we go on. This contemporary trend towards materialism is attributable in a large part to the sad neglect of the church in teaching the law of giving. Religious institutions have failed miserably in this respect, undoubtedly because they have been preoccupied with their own need to receive support. Again, this is that as within, so without that I was talking about. So we can't just, we can look at American capitalism, of course, then the church in the Western world, or in this case, the United States, right, is also a reflection of it still in a get mentality in many respects. And so then that is then why many times these teachings are not taught in some places, right?
And really, that get is even fear on the part of the church.
Of course
Let's
it's
talk
fear.
about it.
Of course it's fear.
That they won't be supported, that the people that come and receive won't remember to give. And so the mentality becomes, we got to forcefully do things. Right? We got to use the text, the Bible, to make you think you got to give a certain amount. Right? All of that stuff happens.
Preachers have talked of giving as returning to God a portion of one's income. Churchgoers have been lulled into a pious acceptance of this form of idealism. However, it completely skirts the issue of inward-rooted giving, as it deals with an anemic God of the skies who bargains with us for a giving return. Right? Jesus said, "Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. By nature's law, the lily grows and unfolds from a bulb to a flower. It is a discernible enfoldment from within outward. There is no obligation for the flower to return a portion of its fragrance and color and form to nature. There is no way it could do this, even if it wanted to do so, because life is a forward, growing, unfolding experience." Hear this. Don't miss the implication of this homely illustration. Your life is God's gift to you. What you do with it is your gift to God.
Yes, that's important.
What you do with it is your gift to God.
Meaning that cycle of giving and receiving, right? That's what we're talking about here.
Right.
And we notice people are saying that the YouTube dropped off, and we'll post it there if that is the case later on YouTube.
So we go on. Two men were engaged in an animated conversation as the discussion grew increasingly heated. One of the men was heard to say, "Just tell me one thing. What's in it for me?" It's an attitude that is all too common. What's in it for me? Not how can I give more to the job or relationship, but how can I be sure that I get mine? Now, this is beautiful, and I love that he says not just the job or the relationship. This is very, very, very important. Because this, again, when we're talking about giving, and we've shared this many times in the context of relationships, when you're calling in the one, when you're thinking about and writing about and dreaming and imagining and visualizing what that relationship is about, if you cannot and have not articulated what you are excited to give, then in relationship, you are also in a get. Because you're in this place of what's in it for me. I want to be loved this way. I want to be treated this way. I want to be with somebody that understands my love languages. That's cute. That's wonderful. That's good. But are you willing to give that, right? Are you articulating that? But see, the thing about that, then you would have to know what you have.
You have to know what you have. You would have to spend all of that time. The first one you call in is you. You would have to spend that time understanding you. right? What you have to offer, and knowing that it has to be reciprocated. Mm-hmm. We cannot give what we don't already have, and we always receive what we already are.
Yep.
Right? So that's true with relationships. It's true in career. It's just true.
Yep. Yep. And so it's interesting here because he goes into this piece, which I thought was very interesting, talking about young people, right? People ages 20 to 30 in the job market. And this idea that I highlighted, they are ready to take but not to give. Now, what I find interesting about this, and I hope this helps somebody, if you look, this book was originally written in 1998. Now, what was interesting and funny to me is this is how right now people are talking about millennials, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, those millennials, they just they're ready to take but not give. Now, what's interesting is that at the time that this was written, he would have been talking about, or this article would have been talking about Gen X, right? It wouldn't have been talking about millennials. And so what's interesting, first, just for our millennial brothers and sisters, hear this, that this is an old line that is talked about. Every generation is talked about in this way. And so we're not going to talk about you in this way in as much as we were talked about in this way. But what it points to, and he does kind of further he finally says this later, that no matter what, he said, if true, this is a stirring indictment of the contemporary generation. Perhaps it is overstated, more of a caricature of the actual situation. However, anyone who has worked with people in the supervisory capacity will readily agree that there are two general types of people in life. And so here's where we want to get to, right? Let's not get caught up in, oh Lord, he talking about the young people. They talking about the people that are 20 to 30 years old. Again, that's an old conversation that happens generation after generation.
Right, because every generation before it thinks that they gave the most.
Right.
Right? And in some cases they did.
Right. And in many cases they were working too hard when they need to. Right. Let's just keep it all the way real.
Right.
So in that sense, and when we're looking at that, then what we recognize is that there are generally two types of people, and in varying moments or times or seasons in our life, we are in one of these camps, a giver or a taker. So again, as you're thinking about your money, as you're thinking about your relationships, as you're thinking about your business, your job, your employment, as you're thinking about all of these areas of your life, your health, right? Are you a giver or are you a taker? A word of caution. Please don't agree with this judgmentally, thinking, oh, yes. I know many people who are takers.
Yeah, she's taker. I dated a lot of takers, right?
Energy vampires.
Right.
No such thing. We are not dealing with they or them. We are dealing with you. And this is why I say there's no such thing as an energy vampire, right? Because nobody can take what you ain't given.
Right. And if you recognize your worth and your value, you wouldn't give it away so easily.
Right. Okay. So we are not dealing with they or them. We are dealing with you. See it as a test for yourself. We are not trying to change others. Our goal in this book is to help you be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Right.
So the takers are the people who believe that their lives will always be the total of what they can get from the world. They are always thinking, get. They plan and scheme ways to get what they want in money, in love, in happiness, in all kinds of good. No matter that they may be applying metaphysical techniques, they still may very well be takers. You need to hear that. But whatever may be their spiritual ideals or lack of any, no matter what they take, they can never know peace or security or fulfillment.
Right.
It's never enough. It's never enough. The house is never enough. The car is never enough. The beautiful people in their life is never enough. The lavish dinners is never enough. The clothes are never enough, right? Because they started from a place of emptiness that has a hole at the bottom, and everything just keeps falling through. Falling through. It just keeps falling through.
Right.
And so how could you have peace in that circumstance? How could you feel a sense of security? We talked about security a few weeks ago. I am secure, for I know who I am. I am secure in all that I do, for I know that my treasure, in all that I have, for I know that my treasure is in my mind, in my thoughts, right? Not in my things. I live this life from day to day knowing that God's supportive substance is endless and dependable as this air that I'm breathing right now, right? They don't live in that place, right? And what's interesting, I remember personally kind of hitting this crossroads in my study and understanding of metaphysics, and was kind of feeling depressed because I started to see these two paths, or what seemed like two paths. Right? I recognized that there was a lot of New Thought metaphysical teachings that were really rooted in taking. Right? It was only talking about stuff. It was only talking about giving. It was only talking about manifesting. It was only talking about, cars and houses and things. And I'm like, yeah, I get how we can use the principle for these things, but something doesn't sit well with me, particularly as I understand the context of New Thought being, something birthed in the United States of America, and we got to reconcile, capitalism, right, as it's practiced in this country. We got to reconcile that. Like, that doesn't make sense, right? And then there's the love and oneness part, and I'm like, well, how does these two things go together? And so through my own study and search and prayer and meditation and listening, I was able to find that place of harmony, and it's rooted in understanding this, right? So the second half, the givers. The givers, on the other hand, are convinced that life is a giving process. Thus, their subtle motivation in all their ways is to give themselves away. In love, in service, in all of the many helpful ways they can invest themselves. They are always secure, for they intuitively know that their good flows from within. Right? Now, this is beautiful, and we got to say this. We got to put a big asterisk on this, because we recognize how this can be received. Because somebody right here, right now is listening and saying, yes, but PG and PY, I have given and I have given. I always give. I volunteer here and I volunteer there. I'm the one that stays late at work. I'm the one that comes in early at work. I'm always the one giving. As a matter of fact, I gave my last dollar to a man on the street the other day, right? But, beloved, call it on the y'all events right now. I encourage you to consider that what if all of your giving prior to this moment, until today, was sacrifice?
Absolutely. What if all your giving was from an empty place? What if all your giving was to prove something, to get love? What if there was a motivation behind the giving that wasn't, and I won't say pure in the sense that it's in an unconscious place, a vibration of a not enoughness? What if all your giving was just to get the love that you think you wanted? What if all your giving was to show everyone how worthy you were? What if that's what was really behind it? And it wasn't just this understanding of what giving really means. And for that, let's take a breath in that. Because we all, I can speak for myself, have been guilty of that, have been unconscious, unaware of ways in which I've been giving beyond.
Right.
And then getting resentful afterwards.
There's your clue. There's your clue, right? If you thought that you were giving, from a free, open place, from this place of good flows from within, but you feel resentful afterwards, right? Or, sometime afterwards, that's the clue that you were giving, that you were sacrificing, right? And unfortunately, that's really the way we've been taught to interact with the world when it comes to giving. We're even taught, and there's a misrepresentation. I'm thinking about a couple sermons. One, the mystery of giving, where I talk about that story of the widow's mite, where Jesus points out to the widow who gives to the temple her very last. And he points that out. See, even this woman, she gave of her very last, and says that she would be blessed. And that story has been taken to mean that we're supposed to sacrifice, like give God your very last. But if you look at it and you understand the socio-political circumstances of that time, and when you understand that Jesus the Christ was a radical revolutionary, and when you look at what happened just before that story, what he was doing was saying, this don't make no sense. This woman is giving her last when the scripture, the Torah, says that you're supposed to take care of the widows and orphans. So why does this woman, this widow, have to give her last when they're the ones that should be giving to her? That's what's really going on in the story, right? And so it's important that we unlearn these things, right? We unlearn, even just in this idea that we're supposed to be like Jesus. If Jesus is, we are supposed to think like Jesus. But if Jesus, in many cases, is considered the penultimate, right? The ultimate sacrifice of putting himself on a cross, right? He was assassinated. He didn't put himself on a cross.
Right.
But then, to die for the sins of the world, which is great for this next part that we're going to talk about. That's not something that we should be trying to do, right? Please don't put yourself on the cross for your family, your job, anybody else, right? We already know, just in terms of the economy, right? Mm-hmm. Most companies ain't put themselves on the cross for you.
Wow. Take that in.
Yeah.
Because in a way, we inherently know that that's true. That's why many of us resent going to the job we go to. Mm-hmm. We know that the balance is off. Mm-hmm. But most of the times we're so afraid that if we don't give more, that we'll be out on the street or whatever the case may be, that we don't try to bring it back into balance for ourselves. Mm-hmm. I have several friends, and I've been one of those people, that just out there in the work world just doing. And actually it was more proven.
Yep.
It wasn't about this balance.
Right.
And we say this so that you can forgive yourself and set yourself free if you've been too much on one side or the other. Mm-hmm. Right?
Mm-hmm. That's all. Today is a new set point. This is why we always share that. We say that idea until today. Mm-hmm. Right?
Until this very moment.
Right. Until this moment. Yes, this is what I did. I sacrificed. I recognized. Mm-hmm. Until today.
Until today.
New set point.
New moment. This new breath. This new awareness. This new awareness is actually the start of a new day.
Yep.
So I don't have to go back. I can just take this awareness and move forward.
Yep.
I can forgive myself. I can forgive those people that, quote unquote, took too much. Mm-hmm. We now understand the energy under which they did that. Mm-hmm. We set them free too.
Absolutely.
Because I don't have time to be their jailer.
Absolutely. Right. Don't get caught up in that. That's just another okie doke. So it's interesting, this conversation about Jesus, and I love this next section here. This is a deep teaching, y'all, and I love that he just dropped this here in talking about giving. In the 3rd chapter of John, 16th verse, is the classic statement so often repeated by Christian fundamentalists. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. It's one of the first verses I ever memorized, and I'm sure many of you learned as children if you grew up in the Christian church. It is commonly thought and taught that this refers to Jesus, that Jesus is the only begotten Son, and by believing in him, we attain eternal life. The whole structure of traditional Christian view rests on this foundation concept, which is by and large a misconception. Mm-hmm. Meister Eckhart, a medieval mystic monk, gives the key that unlocks the true meaning of John 3:16. God never begot but one Son, but the eternal is forever begetting the only begotten. In other words, God so loved you that God gave you that which is begotten only of God. While much of your human self bears the influence of your parental background and also of your sociological experiences in life, yet there is that of you, the whole person of you, the self of you, which is begotten only of God. And if you believe in what Paul calls the Christ in you, you begin to experience life on an eternal vibration. So what are we talking about here?
Let's talk about that.
What's so powerful about this 100% echoes A Course in Miracles.
Yes, it
right?
does.
And so what I love about this and why we harmonize these texts, A Course in Miracles is not new. The Bible is not new, right? Spiritual economics, these teachings are not new, right? New thought, ancient wisdom. These ideas and these teachings have been disseminated, and this understanding has been with us all the time. Okay. God never begot but one Son, but the eternal is forever begetting the only begotten. So when you hear and read, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, what we have to understand is that we are all the Son. We are all the children of God, and right. God is forever giving of itself as its child, right?
That's what begotten means. It's giving rise to.
Right.
Many of us don't even understand begotten. Mm-hmm. It's just that God is always giving of itself. It's always giving rise to itself. It's always creating from itself. It's always, in A Course in Miracles, extending itself, right?
And so the believing in him, again, as it's using masculine language, son is a container, right?
Sonship.
Right, is a container. And so him, what we're talking about, it's us. So we could absolutely say, right, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten daughter, that whosoever believeth in her would not perish but have everlasting life, right? What would even be better is for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten child, right? Because it would just be a container that includes us all, because we all know that we are a child of God, right? We affirm that. We know that to be true. And so what we understand then is this important thing that, yes, as he says, much of your human self bears the influence of your parental background, your familial background, your genetic identity, your sociological experiences, and the things that have shaped and nurtured you into who you are. But all of that is not who you are, right? All of that is not the I am that dwells within you, that actually is the life within you that is animating the human self that you currently are inhabiting, right? And so we recognize that then this thing, it's the stuff of God, right? That's your true nature. And that is constantly being given over and over and over again.
And we can almost take out the word only, because many of us interpret that meaning, oh, over there, that it was just Jesus. We could just make it one son, one daughter, one sonship. It gave of itself, and of course it extended in a myriad of ways. It's not only over here. It's not a chosen people.
Exactly.
Right? We got to understand that as well. And so what's giving rise to, it's more than your conditioning in this world.
Yes.
It extends beyond your conditioning. It's the thing in you that never dies.
Absolutely.
It's the thing in you that is never injured.
Yes. And why is it important that you understand that exists? Because that's the only way that you transcend or overcome situations, circumstances, and challenges in this time-space reality, in this duality, in this thing that we call life or the world, right? That's why you have to have that understanding. And he writes, right, what a transcendent idea, that you have your own unique flow of the divine. That is why Emerson talks of the need for each person to have his or her own firsthand and immediate experience of God. Y'all ever hear PY say that?
Yes.
She says that every Sunday, right, in the meditation, preparing us for meditation. Reading books is cute. It's helpful. Yes. Helpful to the point of having a direct first-hand, immediate experience of the all that is.
And the only way I can speak to that or even talk about that is from my own experience of being out there trying to acquire as much knowledge, and that's important. And in a way, it was important because I couldn't be here to get all this knowledge and harmonize it all. But I had to come back to something that when I put the book down, where was I? And what was I? And what was I connected to? If I never picked up another book, would I still be connected? Would I still walk out of that space knowing who and what I am?
Right.
That's what this is all about.
Right.
Yes, use the books. Acquire the knowledge so that you can undo things that have been taught to you falsely. And then, how do I live it? I live the God experience, and that's why we talk about it so much.
Right, even those specific words, right? And I didn't think about this because we share this every Sunday, but as we've been together, we haven't been sharing, the mission, vision, and purpose of CSC, and that idea that CSC is a God experience. God experience turns on the heart, mind, and soul of the world. Right? And part of what meditation, the point of meditation, and the gift of meditation is contacting that transcendent part of ourselves, that eternal part of ourselves, and we bring that out with us in the world so that we don't forget. And we have to do this on a daily basis, on a frequent basis, because there's so much information out here, so much input, right, and data that would have us look in another way or think in another way, or I'm laughing, I'm thinking about Reverend Michael, or just getting too human. I'm thinking about a conversation we had, but that's what starts to happen, right? We get out here, we get too human.
We get caught up in the effect.
Right.
We forget that it's the effect.
Right.
To tap into this awareness of God within you is the only way you can transmute anything. It is the only way.
We go on. However, the most important aspect of John 3:16 is for God so loved the world that he gave. God is the divine givingness of the universe, and you are created in the image likeness of this divine givingness. You cannot make any sense out of life or realize the free flow of substance in your experience until you begin to see yourself as a giver. It may mean a complete turnaround in your approach to life, where you think give instead of get. In your spiritual quest, you are seeking to establish yourself in a unitive relationship with the divine flow. Think about that. The divine flow, which is God. And if the one of the most powerful aspects and attributes of this thing that we call God is its givingness itself, then you would have to establish a unifying relationship with givingness, which means you would have to start to express that which is always expressing God. You can never really achieve this level of consciousness until giving becomes the main thrust of your life. And when it does, when you discover the wonder of giving, you become unblushingly an incurable giver. Meditate long on this point, for it is one of the most important keys of the prosperity law. Life for the whole person is a giving process. We are not talking specifically about church giving, giving to charity, and so forth. There are many channels through which your giving may be funneled.
Yes.
We are talking about attitudes towards life. The basic awareness that that life is a matter of developing or unfolding from within. It is knowing that life is not something to get, but something to express. What this reminds me of, and it's sort of an indelible memory for me that it helps always to bring me back to this reality. Many of you may remember this. Unfortunately, it didn't get, I guess, all of the attention that I thought it would have. But after 9/11, Michael Jackson did something very specific. He was moved, and he wrote a song, and he brought people together. And the title of the song is "What More Can I Give?" At the moment of peril, at the moment of destruction, at the moment of people just feeling in despair, at the moment of incredible grief and loss, the thing that he tapped into, understanding this truth, what more can I give? Right? This is a man that, we know, documented at that time, had been, giving and supporting all kinds of things, right? If We Are the World was the last thing that he had been involved in, understanding the magnitude of that would have been enough, right? But that question, what more can I give? This is the vibration that we get to sit in and stand in. This is the vibration that then has us in this unified or unifying relationship with the divine flow. It is the fulfilling awareness that your business is always the express business, no matter what name your worldly vocation may bear.
Yes, and that's why I always say, your purpose is love. Whatever you do to express that purpose, that's up to you. God has no qualms about how you do that. Doesn't judge how you make love visible. It just says that that's what you're here to do.
Absolutely.
And there is an even greater call on the earth right now for that to be the thing. For us to give something right now. And many of us might be, in fear, doubt, and worry about how to give or what to give, but you got to ask the question.
And I'm also thinking in this moment in the Master Manifestor class, right? One of the things that we start with in the beginning, as you're thinking about what you want to manifest, and as a group we've manifested millions, and it's wonderful to do all of those things, but that's never the point. Right? I share that the only reason we set a number to manifest is because it's a measurable goal, and we can start to look at and be clear about all of the things that we did to bring that into being. But that's not the focus, right? We put our focus on the thing under the thing, right? I want to manifest $100,000. What is that money going to support me in doing? So that's what I put my focus on, not on the number. But additionally, what I share in that class and one of the foundational pieces is, and what are you willing to give? Because again, we don't teach get, right? You come into a Master Manifestor class and you're going to learn about giving, right? What are you willing to give? And Think and Grow Rich, right? Think and Grow Rich with the statement of desire. The statement of desire, if you go back to the text, if you read it, Napoleon Hill, in that statement of desire where you're saying what amount of money that you want, and in that statement is, and I will, willingly and cheerfully give of myself. It's both and, right? So this is incredibly important as we understand this and as we're thinking about it. So even as whatever it is that you're seeking to experience, to have in your life, seeking to manifest, whatever it is that you want to be, do, or have, learn to think from the giving place. Mm-hmm. If you're feeling blocked, if you're feeling stuck, that was one of my first things that I did. I was going through a terrible time financially. Everything just seemed blocked and stuck. But thankfully, this teaching was within me somewhere, and it came back to me, just like the prodigal son came to himself. And I started keeping money on me that I could just give, right? I used money in that sense. But also, particularly as I think about in ministry, that was one of the things that happened when I just feel like my life was just really set on fire in 2009. And what I was clear about was I'm off the sidelines. I had to give, right? I can't remember I don't know if it was in the context of this class, but it feels like it wasn't that long ago I was sharing the story of, I went to see someone. He, does intuitive readings and can tell you all this stuff. And I thought I was going to hear something deep. And what I heard, what Spirit said to him through me is, you're filled to the top.
Yes.
You're filled to the top. Give.
Right.
And I knew what that meant. That meant give of your music, give of your time, give of your talents, give of your treasure, give of your ideas, give of your leadership, give of your experience. To whom much is given, much is required. Right? I was sitting there with all of these brilliant, beautiful experiences that I've had, all of the amazing human beings that have poured their knowledge and experience into my life, all of these beautiful people that have given me opportunities, all of the things that I've seen, places I've been, that have created the man that I was at that time and the man that I am today, and I'm sitting around ain't giving nothing.
And that experience is not unique to PG. Mm-mm. All of us are sitting here full to the brim. Mm-hmm. But what happens is we begin to look at what we think are our skills, gifts, talents, and we judge them. Mm-hmm. We judge them. We're like, this is not enough. Mm-hmm. I need to acquire one more degree. Mm-hmm. I need to get one more thing behind my name. Mm-hmm. And we're saying you're already full to the brim.
Yep.
You're already full to the brim. Now give. Mm-hmm. Not from judgment, and definitely not from fear that it won't be received. Mm-hmm. Course in Miracles talks about every encounter is a holy encounter. And your gift in that moment might just be a smile. Mm-hmm. And your gift in that moment might just be recognizing that person on the street is just as equally powerful as you are. Yep. And your gift in the moment might be anything, but you got to ask, what is there for me to give? Right. And when you ask the question, it's because you know you have something. Mm-hmm. I'm holding it in my hand. Now, who do I release it to? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have it in my possession. Who do I release it to?
Yes.
I have it in my being. Now, who do I give it to?
Absolutely.
And you're asking that question to the truth within you.
Yeah, always.
To the God within you.
Always.
But you can't be afraid to ask the question and get the answer and do what it is telling you to do. Yep. Without judgment. Absolutely.
So I'm going to move ahead. I'm going to skip over this German painting section, just for time's sake. Just for time's sake. But it's a beautiful teaching and awareness, and talking about giving and understanding that all the ways that as we're giving, we're receiving, and not just in that, not to belittle it, but I just think people go to this place too quickly of, the idea of, when I give, I volunteer, I just feel good, And the reason why I say that is because many times the vibration, it's the difference between serving and helping. And so it's like, I feel good, I'm helping somebody, and subconsciously and subtly, it's like, well, I'm a little better than you, I'm better off than you, so that's why I'm giving, right? And that's not what we're talking about, right? The sun doesn't give of itself because it's better off than us, right? Or, these lowly people need some sunshine. Right. The flower doesn't give of its beauty and express its beauty because, these lowly human beings don't have beauty and don't have fragrance in their life. It can't help but do that. That's just what it does.
It can't help it.
Right? It's just revealing itself. Right? So that's the energy. Right?
It can't help it, and it wouldn't want to. Mm-hmm. Because to cut off the flow would mean it couldn't even receive more. Mm-hmm. It couldn't express more. It couldn't be more. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just going to skip down here. There are many skilled, even exceptional painters, sculptors, composers, and builders. But the real genius is the one whose skill is held up like an Aeolian harp through which the winds of selfless giving blow steadily, creating ethereal music. Someone has said that architecture is frozen music. Perhaps it is true of all great arts, such as the law of giving. What's in it for me? You may be saying this of your present job, perhaps out of a feeling that you are not adequately compensated for the work you do and the responsibilities you shoulder. If you discover the wonder of giving, you will find a great blessing of inner fulfillment in your work, which will lead to better work, and by the law of causation, to a greater experience of affluence, which may come through your job or through many different channels. The law is exact. If you give, really work in a giving consciousness, you must receive. If you don't have that highlighted, please do.
Yes.
Right? If you, at this point, still ask the question, what's in it for me, then you are being grossly underpaid, even if your salary is in six figures or more. Mm-hmm. If all you get out of your work is a paycheck, you are shortchanging yourself.
Let that sink in.
If you give, really work in a giving consciousness, you must receive. So if we're ever asking in any moment, what's in it for me, right, then of course, right, we're grossly underpaid.
Or what about me?
Right. Another great story, but we're going to skip it. Please read the story. Now, I like this next section. Who has not exclaimed at some low moment of his or her life, my life has no meaning? This sense of meaninglessness is the greatest cause of depression and even of compulsive addiction in the form of overeating, alcoholism, and drug addiction and more. But you see, life doesn't have meaning. This is another deep moment. We did the For God to Love the World moment. This is another deep moment, which also reflects A Course in Miracles. It makes about as much sense to say my life has no meaning as it does to stand in a dark cave with an unlit flashlight in your hand and say, this place has no light. Jesus would say, let your light shine. Meaning is not to be found out there, yes, in a job, in a person, or in a relationship. Meaning is something you release from within yourself. You put meaning into your work, yes, into your experiences, into every relationship with people. Many persons find great meaning in their lives through a kind of work that would be a drag to someone else. It is not the work, but the sense of giving in which it is done.
Meaning is always foundational.
Right.
Course in Miracles, I have given everything I see all the meaning that it has for me.
Yeah.
I've done that. I've decided that this is important or not. I've decided that I matter or not.
This is it, and you know, this is something, of course, we teach and work with, you know, folks on all the time. But it's so important when you start to understand that every situation, every circumstance, every relationship, every job, every encounter, we are placing meaning on it. It changes the game.
And that meaning comes from a conditioned mind,
right,
that has had so many experiences, maybe so many disappointments, maybe so many things didn't work out, that it begins to filter its life through this meaning that it's attached to everything. I love how Byron Katie says two people have never met. They've never met because they're meeting their projection of the other person. Right. They're meeting their experience and their meaning behind the relationship, the need for it, what it will mean about them. And if we could just meet each other in the present moment, knowing that we're equals, knowing that we come as from the seed of knowingness, that we were the begotten, that this thing gave rise to us, instead of our story of lack, limitation, unworthiness, doubt, and fear.
Right.
Then I could see you.
Right.
I could be present with you.
Right.
I wouldn't be looking at you thinking, oh, what's he going to say that's going to make, I was going to say a bad word, it's going to upset me. I wouldn't be looking at that person to see what can they give me. I would be there and present, knowing that we are there to give and receive, create this cycle with each other.
Right. Right. And this is also what's interesting. You know, I'm thinking about, we were watching an episode of Songland, the show on NBC. Songwriters pitch their songs, and there was a couple who wrote this song called "Maybe It's Love," right? And they were in a point of crossroads, right? Of do we stay together? Is this thing that's going on? Is this a thing that's going to tear us apart? And this is what's interesting when we start to think of maturity in relationship and maturity in life, that when you understand the meaning that you place on any situation, this is what supports you then in saying, I'm choosing to remain in this relationship and see a different outcome. I'm choosing to stay at this job even and see a different outcome because I now recognize that I hold the meaning.
Yes.
Right? This person, this place, this idea cannot and does not define me. Right? And so if I have the opportunity to understand that my meaning is in here, then I stand in any circumstance, situation, or place, and it begins to respond to me. Mm-hmm. Right?
It's always responding to you.
Always responding, right? And so, there's so many layers, and again, he's kind of just talking about work here, but there's so many deep layers when we start to think about meaning.
Right.
Even just, it reminds me of another conversation I was having last week, but just what happens sometimes in interpersonal relationships. Oh, well, I thought you meant this. That's why I was upset. Mm-hmm. But now I understand that's not what you meant. So we're cool. Right. I was upset because I thought you meant. I decided the meaning. Right. Not because that's what you meant. Mm-hmm. Right. And so we get into disagreements and misunderstandings all the time because of those things. So what if we're sitting in a place of employment and we've been projecting and all this meaning on the situation and thinking we know what our boss is thinking or saying or doing, right? And we don't even know, right? Because we're swimming in our own meaning.
We're swimming in our own story. How many times do you, in your own mind, have a whole conversation with somebody that's not even in the room? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to say this if she says that. And then when she says that or he says that, I'm going to say this, right? You're already in there crafting a story. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And usually based on an old story. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, we're not saying that you have to remain in a relationship that's physically or emotionally abusive. So hear us.
Right.
We're not saying you have to stay in a job that is in some way abusing your gift, skills, and talents.
Right.
We're not saying
that.
Please hear that. Please hear that. What we're saying is, when you evaluate something, check your meaning.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Check your meaning and then check it at the door if it's not serving you.
Right. If it's not serving you, if it's not bringing you peace.
Yes, and that's what I mean by serving you.
Right, yeah. And, if it doesn't allow you to be kind,
yes.
If it's not allowing you to be loving.
If it's keeping you up at night.
Right, yeah, right. All of these things, right? If it's not allowing you to show the beautiful parts of yourself, right? Your God self. Right?
And even the meaning that we attach to the things we say we want. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If I had this job, if I made this amount of money, what would it mean? I'm always bringing people back to meaning. And that means what? Because there's a lot of people that have that and still have no peace. Mm-hmm. Still don't understand that they are the begotten son and daughter. Mm-hmm. So that means what about you? Yeah, and once you uncover the meaning, then you can get to the healing. Mm-hmm. Then you can get to the cleaning up of the meaning.
Yep.
All right now.
Replacing it.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm looking at the time, and I think we've tapped into some powerful parts, and I think really the heart of this chapter. Again, I encourage you can go and find the sermon on YouTube, Think, Give, which just reinforces these ideas. The mystery of giving is another message. Sacrifice is a 4-letter word from the Who You Are is Who We Need series. I know there's some other ones on giving, and if we don't already have a playlist on giving, we'll put that together. There's a Law of Circulation series. I think there may be a playlist, but again, if not, we'll put it together. Because, this is something that's foundational, and we know it will support each and every one of you in continuing to understand and think about from that perspective. It will also be a great decision gate. Because as I said, in relationship, what am I excited to give? Well, that's in every area of life, right? So if you're someone that's looking for a new job right now, right? You're looking for a new place of employment or even searching for business ideas or thinking about what that is, what am I excited to give, right? It reminds me of Howard Thurman. I'm paraphrasing part of it, but he says, right? He admonishes us to do the things that make you come alive, because that's what the world needs. The world needs givingness, because that is the nature of God, is the nature of life. And if the whole world were tapped into that flow, oh my goodness, what a day of rejoicing that will be.
The world needs us all to bring our full selves to the table.
Yeah. So in this moment, it is time for giving. And, we understand giving here at CSC, right?
Yes.
We know exactly what it is. We know what it's all about. I don't think we even have to say much more about it. But if you would like to give to CSC, if you would like to exercise and tap into that flow of givingness as you give where you're spiritually fed, then by all means, go to this website, celebrationsc.org/give. Give what feels good, right? Give what's aligned, right? Please don't give out of shame and guilt and fear and obligation. Give what feels good. Give from a place of joy. You can also text to give, 347-744-9500. The minimum amount for text is $10, which supports in covering the fees for that service. But no matter what you give, right, and no matter when you give, we stand in the absolute vibration that there is a law of circulation. It is always working, that when you give from this consciousness, you must, by law, receive. And because of that, we affirm week in and week out, all the money that I use returns to me multiplied. In a never-ending cycle. Of increase. And enjoyment. With that, we say amen. Ashe. And so it is. We love you.
And remember, we won't be live next Sunday.
Absolutely.
For the July 4th weekend, but enjoy your weekend.
Absolutely. And we have the affirmative prayer class. We'll be streaming at 11 a.m. next Sunday. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be beneficial and support you holistically with all that we're studying. Happy Pride. Stay safe. Wear a mask.
All
right. Love y'all.
Love you.
Bye for now.